sports show Biz Buzz.
Biz Buzz.
And there's
I like saying that. Biz Buzz.
Yes, and on the phone with us, joining us, we're very excited to have her, Alicia Jessop, who's a legal analyst. And exactly, Alicia, if you could help us with who you're a legal analyst with, I apologize.
No worries. I write for a couple of outlets. I write for CNBC and the Huffington Post, and I'm a professor at the University of Miami.
That makes great sense. Do you take that overhead rail to the University of Miami? Because I never can figure out where it goes.
I did several times, but I prefer to drive my car to work.
We have a picture of you on our 70-inch screen, and you have one of the most incredible smiles that I've ever seen, I think. I love your smile. So I hope you're smiling right now as you're with Woody Paige and Mark Kiszla. And we want to talk about, from your viewpoint, what do you think will happen as the fallout in the Houston Astros, St. Louis Cardinals mess, what I'm calling hack-a-stat, and what should happen there? This is new fertile ground for Major League Baseball. They have rules about how much they can fine a team, but there are a lot of moving parts to this. Alicia, is that not true?
Yeah, I mean, from a lawyer's perspective, there definitely are a lot of moving parts. You have the possibility of criminal prosecution. You have the possibility of the Houston Astros suing the Cardinals in civil court.
Ooh.
And then, of course, you have the commissioner of baseball having the best interest of the game power to levy some really harsh sanctions against the team.
Well, I've seen that the maximum fine is $2 million, but I think based on what you just said, with a new commissioner in place, I'm sure he wants to show that he's got a power base here. What do you, I mean, are we talking about draft choices? We assume there will be suspensions, firings. The top executives of the Cardinals are saying top executives were not involved or had knowledge of what was going on. What do you think could be the max out here?
I definitely see draft choices, but unlike the NFL or the NBA, losing a draft pick in Major League Baseball doesn't have the detrimental effect that it does with other leagues. So I think you'll definitely see suspension, maybe even a banishment, if you will, of the individuals who were involved if it comes to show that these people actually did what they're accused of doing. And then I think you're going to see some really hefty fines. You could also possibly see a postseason ban, which in my opinion is the thing that would stick the hardest to the Cardinals.
Wow. That is wow. So the owner of the Cardinals comes out and says, hey, none of us knew anything about this, which is what the leader always does. So should I take this as serious corporate espionage, or should I take it as a prank against a former employee of the Cardinals?
You know, it seems a little bit more than a prank. I laughed, honestly, the first time that I heard the word corporate espionage put on the table, but the more that I read about this and the more that I see, it kind of looks that way. You have to wonder what this new Astros general manager, Jeff, did to these people in St. Louis to irk them so badly that they hack into his account and steal essentially what are trade secrets of the Houston Astros. So espionage seems like a strong word on the base, but when you look at the law, there's actually a law called the Economic Espionage Act that these allegations fit pretty nicely under.
As a professor, now, you're heading in the direction I wanted to go. In what we would call the regular corporate espionage world, meaning, well, let's take Silicon Valley, for instance.
Yeah.
If you leave Apple
dirty tricks in the Silicon Valley. I got you.
Do you find in your research that since the Federal Bureau of Investigation is involved, that people go to jail and there are considerable fines? What would we see in a place like Silicon Valley if a similar sort of hacking invasion were to happen?
Sure. So there's two main laws that the federal government could bring into play with this case. The first case is the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. And under that law, based upon the allegations that we have so far, people who are convicted could face up to 5 years of jail time and a fine. And the second law that I just mentioned, which is the Economic Espionage Act, that law allows for 10 years worth of jail time. So absolutely, jail time is on the table for these individuals if the facts show that they really did what they're accused of. Now, my guess as to the likelihood of that, most of these people, if they're working for an MLB team, probably don't have criminal records. So my hunch is that they'll be hit with probation and some fine of some sort. But the question is, can these people afford to pay the fine, which ranges from $100,000 upwards to $5 million?
Here's the deal with me. Is baseball has a grand tradition of cheating, from stealing signs to throwing spitballs to taking PEDs. Were these a bunch of knucklehead baseball guys that said, hey, this is just a new way to cheat, and don't realize the severity of what they might have done here?
Yeah, and I think that's a really critical point that you bring up is, do we have the intention here? So when you're a law professor, when you're an attorney, the one thing that you look at with every crime that you're trying to bring a case under is the what's called mens rea, so the mental intent required to prove it. With these crimes, there's not this heavy burden of showing that they intended to harm the team, just that they intended to take something that they weren't supposed to. And so I think that's where it goes from funny prank to serious criminal allegation, because so long as they intended to get into a network that they weren't supposed to be in and take something of value, there's some pretty serious consequences from the legal side.
Live guest appear courtesy of Papa John's Pizza, and we certainly appreciate Professor Jessop. I'd like to ask you one other question. Is the United States government and the laws of this country catching up to well enough to corporate espionage because of what we've seen happen in Los Angeles with the movie industry? Is the government able to reach out its tentacles to North Korea, to Germany? I mean, are we in a position where we're catching up, or are we so far behind in corporate espionage because the Russians supposedly are using it for military advantages, whatever they might be? I mean, are we catching up at all to what's going on?
Right. I mean, the problem is the law isn't preventing anything, because everything that you just referenced, the law comes in retroactively. So in the Sony case, you have films that are hacked, and once they're open, your box office numbers hurt. Here you have trade secrets for the Astros about players, trades, how they look at statistics that are open now. So it's, in that sense, I don't think our laws are doing a good enough job, because arguably they don't have enough bite in them to prevent these people, countries, or other organizations from engaging in this activity. So I think there's definitely some more that could be done in that regard.
Law professor at the University of Miami, Alicia Jessop, has joined us. I thought that was, for a couple of stupid guys that couldn't pass one of your law classes, we actually understood everything you said. So you brought it down to a level that we all can understand.
I got all my questions off the internet from the Astros. So.
Hey, thank you for spending time with us. And how can people reach out and follow you and ask you more questions that actually are better than ours?
I already follow her.
Yeah.
So there you go.
At Ruling Sports.
I'm sorry, and what's your Twitter handle?
Ruling, so like a legal ruling,
Yeah.
Sports.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for spending some time with us. That was outstanding.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
This segment sponsored by John Elway Cadillac of Park Meadows, Colorado's #1 Cadillac dealer.